This episode of the Topcast is proudly supported by Tonebase.co and Rock Out Loud.
So I try to encourage and teach techniques for finding your own unique spin on a song and for being able to show every aspect of yourself, to be surprising, to surprise yourself in the middle of a song that you've done 80 times. That is what makes us say, there's a human being. That's someone that is fun and spontaneous and real, and that I want to spend 4 weeks of rehearsal with, and that's going to bring something creative to the table.
Well, it's great to be back with you, teachers. It's Tim Topham here from the Topcast, the official Music Teachers podcast, and you're listening to episode 198 with a very special welcome going out to my Top Music Pro teachers. In today's episode, we're going to meet Broadway composer and director Andrew Gerle to learn about the art of songwriting, theory from the viewpoint of a working composer, and learn what students can do to express themselves successfully in any kind of auditions. Now, are you rebuilding your studio due to enrollment drops or trying to launch a new income side stream? Well, don't do this alone. Make sure you join us in Evolution, the new membership tier at Top Music Pro, and you can find out more about that by heading to topmusicpro.com. As usual, our show notes and transcript are now available at topmusic.co/episode 198. My guest today, Andrew Gerle, is an award-winning composer and lyricist, music director, arranger, and pianist. He's lived in New York City for over 20 years, worked on dozens of Broadway, Off-Broadway, regional, and touring productions. He's the author of The Enraged Accompanist's Guide to the Perfect Audition. Yes, we'll be unpacking that one later on. And teaches musical theatre performance, theory, and composition, and the Manhattan School of Music. Well, welcome to the show, Andrew Gerle. Very cool to have you with us.
Hi. So happy to be here.
It's very cool because we've been doing some digging on you and as I mentioned in the introduction, the topic of today and a lot of our conversation aligns really well with what we're talking about generally on the blog and the podcast this month, and that's to do with sight reading. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but firstly, can you give us just a quick overview of you do and who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I grew up as a classical pianist, so that's my background. Very lucky to grow up in a musical family. My parents were both classical recording artists. My mother was a concert pianist. My father was a concert violinist. So it was like music in the house all the time. Yeah, it was great. And so that's where I started. But I was also really into theater as an actor, as like a kid actor, and doing musicals and doing the Young Actors Theater and stuff like that. And then I went to, so I studied at Peabody Prep. Peabody Conservatory is a big conservatory in Baltimore, which is where I grew up, near Washington, D.C. And I studied there with a wonderful, wonderful teacher named Nancy Roldan. And then I went to Yale and I studied there with Peter Frankel.
So that teacher was teaching you classical piano?
Yeah, yes, classical piano, all classical piano.
Yeah, okay. So you were doing classical piano at university level?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
You're really serious.
Auditions and did the concertos and then the whole thing. So I was like full-on classical piano guy. But meanwhile, it was interesting. I mean, growing up with the classical, professional classical musicians, I knew what that lifestyle was. I'd seen it exactly and I knew what it was, and it didn't really suit me. I love playing the piano. I love the repertoire. The life of a classical pianist is just rough and lonely, and I didn't really want to do it, it turned out. I love theater. I love telling stories. I love collaborating with people. That's why I still love chamber music more than anything. I still play classically, but mostly chamber music because I love being with people, making music with people, telling stories with people.
Yeah, the life of any kind of solo instrumentalist is a very lonely existence, isn't it?
Really
my understanding is, and you'll know better from your parents, you spend 4 months practicing in your room on your own, and then you go touring for 6 months in hotel rooms on your own.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go to the party afterward and everyone's scared to talk to you. So you sit around and eat the cheese and drink the punch and you go home by yourself. And it's like, that's not
You're really not selling it to me at all.
Yeah. And I also fell in love with theater music. The great theater music is just spectacular, and it moves you and it tells stories and it touches your soul. And I wanted to be a part of that. And I was also feeling like I wanted to start writing some of that music. So I sort of dipped a toe in college, writing some incidental music to plays, and then sort of started just dabbling, writing musicals. I was music directing a lot in college, and then came to New York and just sort of grabbed every job I could in every aspect musical theater.
Yep. Well, you're in the right place if you're in New York, I imagine. So was there
Yeah.
experience on Broadway, backstage, in pits, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it actually, for many years, it was not Broadway. It was revues and cabarets and doing arrangements and doing a lot of symphonic orchestrations, actually, is what I
Hmm.
did a lot of when right out of college. I happened on a company that put together pops concerts for symphonies around the country. And so I would do symphonic arrangements of Broadway tunes, which was a great learning experience.
Yeah. Wow. Challenging, I imagine. I mean, any writing for an orchestra is hard
Yeah,
work.
I've always loved, even since high school, I just loved orchestration. I read Piston's book, cover to cover.
Is that the art of orchestration? Is that
Yeah,
one?
yeah,
I think
exactly.
I've
Yeah,
read that too.
I was that guy in like
Yeah.
ninth grade at the lunchroom table reading Piston. I'm like completely unbearable, but whatever. What are you gonna do?
So, what about leaving the current pandemic aside? What was a normal week looking like for you? What kind of things were you doing week to week?
Well, first of all, I have teaching responsibilities. So I teach at Manhattan School of Music. We started a music theater degree program there 4 years ago. So this was our first year of
Cool.
graduating seniors, which was wonderful.
Oh, that's exciting.
Terrific program. And I music direct there, and I also teach the music theory, sight singing, oral skills classes. So I have those responsibilities, and I always have a few shows, a few projects running around in various states of finishing or revising or trying to sell it to people who might want to do it, or making recordings, or always just trying to get the sheet music up online so people can buy it if they like it. Just juggling all the different aspects of writing new music and trying to get it out there in the world.
Like a tough gig. Almost as tough as being a concert pianist, but at least you can collaborate.
Exactly. A little more control, but that's probably illusory.
So would the ultimate goal be to have a Hamilton or something like that you could put your name to? Would that be just the dream?
I mean, I do. I write shows because I want to tell stories, and I want to tell stories to people. So I'm not content to be like Emily Dickinson, who writes her poems in her attic and puts them in a drawer. Like, that's not what I'm looking to do. So
Yeah.
yes, I do want to get my songs and my shows out there in whatever form that can be, whether it's live production or, since that seems to be on hold for a little bit, I, like a lot of my collaborator friends, are looking for ways to sort of pivot, sort of take properties and figure out, maybe now, is this a podcast musical? Is this an interactive website? Is this a concept album? Right? So different ways to get the material out there so that when we can all gather together again, maybe there will be people who are anxious to actually see it live.
Absolutely. I mean, it is a totally hugely challenging time for anyone in that kind of industry. I remember when the lockdown was announced here in Melbourne, and all the shows I'd just been to see not long ago. Oh, what was the September 11?
Come From Away.
Oh my God, a fantastic show.
We were just in Melbourne last July when it was just about to come, and it was like the biggest deal. It was so great to see it coming.
Oh, right. Did you see it?
I didn't see it in Melbourne. I saw it.
Sorry, yeah, just brilliant. And we had Harry Potter going here, the full like 8 hour thing, or whatever it is, and all of it just bang shut on one day.
Overnight.
And it's easy to think about the performers, but you have all those musicians, you have all of the backstage, you have all of the front of house, you have.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's impacted on so many people. So it's been fascinating seeing just how innovative and creative people can be when they need to be.
Absolutely. Well, that was sort of what happened on my end. Is I woke up one morning and Broadway had closed, and again, like you, I thought of all my friends, all my colleagues suddenly out of work, sitting at home, and I'm like, that's a lot of talent sitting at home with maybe not a lot to do. And I thought, why don't we make an album? So that's actually the latest project I did, is that I put together an album. I asked all these amazing writers to write brand new songs about what we're going through right now. And I got all these Broadway singers and Broadway pit musicians, and everyone recorded their songs in their houses and then sent me all the tracks, and then I put them together, and we have an album now. So
wow.
It was really cool. Yeah, it's benefiting the Actors Fund and the Dramatists Guild Foundation, which are great organizations that help artists in need.
That's great. Because you're in a slightly different position in that you're a teacher as well. So you do have that backstop, I guess, right? which others don't have.
That did keep going, yes. I mean, we had to figure out how to teach sight singing over Zoom, which was
Not fun.
that's really rough, but we managed somehow. We did figure
Yeah.
it out.
So where can people find and listen to that album that you just mentioned? And what's it called?
It's called Artists in Residence, and it's coming out through Broadway Records.
Great. Oh, it's not live yet.
It's coming out June 26th. So I don't know when this is airing, but yeah, June 26th is when it's released, and
Fantastic.
It'll be on the Spotify and the iTunes and on Broadway Records. And yeah, support these amazing writers and brand new songs from like Ahrens and Flaherty and Alan Menken and David Zippel and Ryan Scott Oliver and Adam Guan and like amazing writers with Tony-winning performers. It's great.
That's fantastic.
Very
you must
cool.
have quite a network of connections doing the work that you do.
Yes, that's a really good thing about having my toe in a lot of pots, that I can just continually sort of bop from project to project in different capacities, music director or pianist or coach or orchestrator, arranger, whatever. So yes, I was lucky, and I've been here a while now in New York, and so I could reach out to various people. I didn't know everyone, but I knew people who knew people, so I could get to a lot of fantastic talent.
Yeah, you really do have a true portfolio career, you might call it, given that you have so many fingers in so many different pies, and that's a great way to operate if you do have skills and interests in so many different areas that are connected.
It's nice, yeah. And I always say everything I do informs everything else. So I'm a better writer because I coach, and I'm a better coach because I orchestrate, and I'm a better orchestrator because I music direct. And it's like everything feeds on each other.
Yeah. And when you have written musicals, do you write the book, so the storyline as well as the music and the lyrics?
Sometimes it depends on the project. I've had shows where I just wrote the music. I just had a premiere of a show that I wrote with Tom Jones, who wrote The Fantastics. We wrote a show together, and it just premiered in Tokyo, of all places.
Hang on, I know that there's The Fantastics is an old musical, isn't it? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Tom is in his 90s, and he just wrote it with me. It's kind of amazing.
Oh, cool. There you go.
Yeah.
That's quite an unusual show. I've done it once.
Yeah, he was my hero for a year, and to write with him was really fantastic.
There you go.
So yeah, sometimes I write just music, sometimes I do music and lyrics and co-book, sometimes I do all three. It just depends on the nature of the collaboration and who comes to who with an idea.
Yeah, great. The virtual lessons with Zoom driving you mad? Audio issues? Trouble connecting? RockOutLoud.live is a virtual music lesson video platform made for music teachers who want to provide their students with the ultimate virtual music lesson experience. Inside the RockOutLoud.live video application, you'll have access to resources like sheet music searches of a library of songs, along with chords you can share across screens to your students in real time. Plus, your student can download their virtual lesson notes while inside the virtual session. It's cheaper than Zoom and gives you lots of the tools to teach an interactive lesson. I've personally been testing RockOutLoud.live with my students and also asking other teachers I know to try it out, and the feedback has been phenomenal. The ease at which you can connect with your students, the sound quality, and also the ability to share on-screen chord charts, chord symbols, and lead sheets is just phenomenal. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for a free 7-day trial by visiting RockOutLoud.live now. I do want to get to... You've actually got a book, because I want to talk about this sight reading thing, because what a lot of my listeners won't know is that I have done a lot of repetiteur work, so playing for musical theatre auditions and musical theatre shows, bopping along to Oklahoma going bop, 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 while they do their dance for about 20 minutes. And so I know well some of the things that you've experienced and you do for in a professional sense, but you've obviously played for countless auditions.
I have.
And had to do a lot of sight reading. And given that it's our focus this month, I thought, I actually think that audition piano playing is probably the hardest sight reading gig around. And so I'm really keen to know about what was that like the first time you did it professionally, and to get some tips about how you've become a confident sight reader yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, it helped that I grew up in a musical family, because I had my mother's huge library of piano repertoire at my disposal. And I loved to sight read. Even in high school, I would just grab something out of the library after school and just read something through. And I was terrible. But eventually I got better and I got better. And so just doing it every day is the first way. Read Bach. Bach is the hardest by far. Just read Bach because you can't predict, and it's all contrapuntal, and it's just impossible.
Yeah, but I wouldn't even try. I mean, I'm a pretty good sight reader. I'm not sight reading Bach. No, thanks.
No, but I mean, yes, it was difficult to start with. I mean, it's like anything else. And I realized this when I don't often play for opera auditions, but every now and then I do. And I don't know that repertoire as nearly as well. And then I get really tense because someone brings in an aria that's clearly very well known and I don't know it. And there's clearly places where everyone takes a pause here and it's not actually written and I should know that and I don't know it. Knowing the repertoire is number one. I mean, if you know a song, then it's a lot easier to read it. It doesn't matter what key it's in. You can, fake your way along. So just knowing the repertoire is really the number one key to being an audition pianist. Just read as much as you can. If you know that that's something that you maybe want to start making some money doing, just grab some anthologies, grab some show scores and down and just start to learn. But in terms of reading, I mean, every now and then I do get songs that I don't know, new songs that their friends wrote, stuff like that. And it's actually one of the things that I looked at and analyzed when I was writing my book about sight singing. Like, what am I actually doing in my brain when I'm sight reading? I'm not reading every note. That's not possible. And I realized that I'm really just reading shapes. It's a graphical
shapes and patterns,
it's a geometric thing. Exactly. If I see 4 notes, I can tell what 7th chord it is and in what inversion just by the shape of it. I don't have to look at every note. And also just from knowing, how tonal music works and musical theater music works, there are lots of chords that aren't even options, right? If I'm looking ahead, which is number one, this is what I do with my students, and we'll get more into that, but looking ahead, looking at the next measure when you're playing the one you're in, I don't have to consider most chords because they don't make any sense musically. So understanding how this music is composed and the chord vocabulary that is used, that's another thing. And that, again, I think most of us have that. Maybe we don't think about it, but if I'm playing along in D major, I'm probably not going to find a B flat 7 all of a sudden. That's probably not going to be there.
Yeah, that knowledge of harmonic structure of music and chord progressions is crucial too. And I must say, whenever I've had to play fourth musical theatre, the other challenge, of course, is that you get a conductor's score, which has, 15 parts that you've got to play in 2 hands and things like that. It's awful. It's pretty common. So all I do is go through and just write chord symbols. So I know what chord that I need to play. And if you get in time, you're okay.
Yeah. I mean, audition situations, no one's bringing in conductor scores.
Oh, no, not for auditions. I mean, for when you're actually playing the show, playing for rehearsals.
Oh, I see. Even then, I mean, usually there's a piano vocal. There's some sort of piano reduction. And yes, you can skip a lot of it. Depending on the composer, like if it's Bernstein, you're going to get every single note. If it's an old Jerry Herman show, you're going to get every single trumpet lick and flute line. And you just ignore them. And
that's right.
Ignore them. You just play along.
Yeah, I've had to help a number of my students just learn to ignore half of what's in those scores. Here's the basic harmonic outline. Here's what you need to play. That might be important there, and leave the rest.
Absolutely. When I teach piano sight reading, which I don't do too much, it's absolutely about, please don't play everything. You have to look ahead. Give me a bass note. Give me a chord. If there's an accidental, it's probably important. So try to get those because you're probably changing key or something. And otherwise, just rhythm. Keep going.
Don't stop. I'm interested to know, going back to you had a very classical upbringing, 2 classical musicians for parents, playing up through university competitions. A lot of that doesn't teach you the skills that you needed in regard to understanding chords and harmony, being able to sight read quickly. I mean, yes, you could play the repertoire and you could probably pick up some Beethoven that you've played before and play it easily, but put a musical theatre score in front of you, that would be something quite different. So where did you get the skills to do this, I guess, given that you had quite a classical, by the sounds of things, traditional upbringing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started playing music theater scores in high school because I did the musicals in school and I would read through the scores and I loved it and it was really fun. And I had a director in high school who gave me a big anthology songbook, like the best Broadway songs or whatever. And I would read that through and get a feel for it. I did a lot of listening, but you're right. I mean, when I first came to the city and took, reviews, jobs, music directing reviews and things like that. Yeah, I knew that I was really square and I needed to figure out how to swing and how to deal with performers who were backphrasing, who were, not staying with the beat. I would always follow them like a good classical, like I was playing leader or something, follow the singer. And luckily I had great music directors that I would play under, and they'd be like, would you stop following them? That's not your job. You have to keep going in rhythm. They'll be around the beat somewhere, but that's fine. You're not supposed to meet them all the time. And I had to really just get out of that. I haven't yet learned really jazz piano chops, even though I love it. And if I have to play something jazz and I have to take a solo, I can write one and practice it and then play it. And people think that I took a great solo, but no, I wrote it. So I listen to things and I fake things until I can do them. I remember an early audition call that I played, I think it was for Bubbling Brown Sugar, which is a review. And they would bring actors in who would be like, just give me a blues in B flat. I'm like, oh my God, what? No, where's the music? No, there's no music. Blues in B flat. Go. Okay, I think I know how that goes. You have that happen to you more than once, and you don't let it happen again.
Yeah, that is exactly the reason why I have a big focus in all the training that I give teachers around the world. It's here. Your students need to be able to play Happy Birthday and be able to play what they hear and be able to do a blues. And there are some simple basics that a lot of traditional education just skips over. And I think that should be part of everybody's experience at the piano.
Absolutely. It's so great to use that part of your brain and to think about music not just as notes on a page that come to your brain and then go out through your fingers. Like that's not the only way we make music.
Yeah. So you and I both got a lot of our experience of sight reading through musical theatre. I also did church kind of things when I was younger, and I think that's a big one too. A lot of kids these days don't have access to those opportunities or don't want them or whatever it is. Are there other ways that you feel that teachers listening can help their students with sight reading to give them better sight reading and also collaborative skills, given they might not have the opportunity to play in their school musical?
I think there's a couple ways. I think, first of all, there's so many resources now. There's so many ways to get music online, all sorts of public domain music. I would have teachers maybe suggest composers to their kids, sort of suss out like where their tastes lie, and then find some sheet music and say, hey, why don't you take a look at this? Don't learn it. Just see if you can poke through it a little bit. I would also encourage collaborative piano sight reading, either with the teacher, hey, let's sight read some piano forehands. There's a lot of graded piano forehand music that's terrific, meant usually for a teacher to play the harder part and the student to play the easier part. That's perfect for sight reading. And then it feels like something you can do with someone else. It's not just sitting alone and feeling like you don't know what you're doing.
It also means that they have to keep going, which is the other big issue with sight reading, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, keeping the pulse consistent. I'm always drumming it in my students. I don't really care if you play every note wrong. Just keep going and keep that rhythm consistent.
Exactly. That is your job. Just keep going.
Yeah, it's a real challenge for a lot of students.
I know, but it's we want to be right, and then we want to fix it. And in front of a teacher, we want to make sure that they know that we know that I just got that wrong, and now I'm going to fix it. Don't care. Just keep going.
Yep. So I have an activity that I get the students to just put their hands over the black notes and just play any notes, but play the rhythm of what's in front of them in time. So it sounds awful, but they keep going. And they don't really mind because it doesn't sound right anyway. They can't fix any mistakes, so they kind of keep going. It's like, they might as well be bashing on a drum, I guess.
Right, but with two hands, that's a great idea.
Yeah. This episode is presented in collaboration with our friends at Tonebase. Tonebase is an online music education platform dedicated to making the highest level instruction affordable to students, teachers, and amateurs around the world. The Tonebase piano artist roster features world-class concert pianists and recording artists like Garrick Olson and Simona Dinestine, legendary musicians like Leon Fleischer, gold medalists of Chopin, Clyburn, and Queen Elizabeth international competitions, as well as professors from top conservatories like Juilliard, Curtis, Eastman, Yale, and Peabody. In a library of over 150 high-quality, in-depth videos, these artists share their insights with you on the craft of piano playing in all its breadth. including tutorials on intermediate and advanced repertoire, workshops on technique and musicianship, as well as interviews and special features. As a privilege of joining Top Music Pro, members receive free, unlimited access to the Tonebase piano platform. Join Top Music Pro to experience the incredible resources Tonebase has to offer at topmusicpro.com. And for more information on Tonebase, visit tonebase.co/piano. That's tonebase.co/piano for more information. So your book, we mentioned that before, it's called The Enraged Accompanist's Guide to the Perfect Audition. Now, this is a bit of emotive language here. What's with the enraged here?
I know people see the title and they think that I'm like some mean guy and that I'm going to hurt you.
I mean, it's good because it captures your attention. And can I just say too, I've been an enraged accompanist, particularly with singers, because of course they want to change keys and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, tell us, what's with it?
What I say right away in the book is like, I'm not enraged because of all the stupid accompanist stuff. Like, you don't know how to put your book together and you don't know how to give me a tempo and you can't find your song and all that kind of nonsense. That's fine. I can teach you that, whatever. What I was enraged about, quote unquote, is really the mechanics of the audition process and the fact that most performers don't get what's going on, that like fundamentally don't understand what the audition process is and don't understand why they're not doing better. And what I wanted to show, I wanted to be sort of this fly on the wall and be like, this is what actually goes on after your audition is over. This is the way they think about you, think about everyone else who's come in. And this is why you feel like you did a great audition and you're not getting a call back.
Because you can hear audition panel are talking about after the person leaves the room.
You know what they talk about? I call them the table people, the people who sit behind the table with their resumes and their coffees and their sandwiches. I hear the way they talk. And I also, I form my own opinions when I watch all these people. And when I'm also a table person, when I'm sitting there casting a show of mine or a show that I'm music directing, I know what the thought process is. And I see why these singers who think that they're doing a really good job, and they are doing a good job, but I see why they're not breaking through. And I wanted to help them understand and to sort of to liberate them a little bit from the way that they're thinking about auditions.
So there may be some teachers listening who have students at higher levels who may be going for auditions. Can you give us a few tips that are in the book?
Absolutely. I mean, the main thing for having a successful audition is to show who you are. That's really the main thing. We want to see who you are specifically, uniquely, messily. We don't want to see the right way of singing the song. And that's really what I focus on with my students, because students have spent their entire lives in the classroom and they have this classroom mentality that you learn the right answer and then when the test comes around, you give the right answer and then you get the good grade. And that is not at all the way you should be thinking of an audition, because everyone else is trying to get the right answer. They're trying to sing the song the right way. They're all aiming for the same target and they all look the same. That is the biggest reason why people are not getting called back, because they just seem like everyone else. So I try to encourage and teach techniques for finding your own unique spin on a song and for being able to show every aspect of yourself, to be surprising, to surprise yourself in the middle of a song that you've done 80 times. That is what makes us say, there's a human being. That's someone that is fun and spontaneous and real, and that I want to spend 4 weeks of rehearsal with, and that's going to bring something creative to the table.
Yeah, it's a good point.
It's not about the voice so much. Everyone can sing fine. There aren't that many roles that need world-class singing, right? There aren't that many Cunagons and Elphabas. There just aren't. Most people can sing the roles that they're auditioning for. Some sing it better than others, obviously, but it's really about storytelling. And about being a unique human being.
Yeah. So setting yourself apart and being personable and human and letting yourself shine through, which I think is important in any performance situation, really.
Absolutely. What we don't want is slick, right? We don't want something that's so polished that I'm seeing my own reflection in you. Like I can't even see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. It's not truthful and it's not captivating. And that's what we want.
And so are there some other musical skills that you look for in performers, apart from just being a little bit different? Are there any special things?
I mean, absolutely. Obviously, having a great sense of pitch, that's number one. And that has to do with technique, but it also has to do with listening. And I think listening is really key. It's key in being a good scene partner, being a good actor, and it's key in being a good musician, obviously. And even if you're in an audition situation with a pianist who maybe isn't doing exactly the way you wanted to, listen to them. See if you can, bop off them somehow and make a performance together. When I'm playing auditions, that's what I love. When all of a sudden we key into someone and we do something, we try something like, I see what she's doing. She's going to go there. All right, I'll go with her. Absolutely.
Yeah,
she's like, oh, she's coming with me. All right, let's do it. Listening and responding and not getting so in your own head. And I see this in my oral skills classes also, teaching people when they are learning to sight sing. So singing a piece of music they just picked up 5 minutes ago with me playing the piano part. A lot of them just get in their own head and just go off to the races and are not listening to anything that I'm doing at all, not even staying with me. Those skills of listening to what's happening with you, listening to what the piano gives you, not just in terms of musical content, but also narrative content. The great theater songs, the great accompaniments are written with story in them, with character in them. That's one of the things that I focus on my sight reading and theory book is being able to look at a score and say, look, there's a sharp dissonance on that word. That's interesting. I wonder what that's about. Is that going to change the way I sing that word? Being aware of everything that's going on around you, not just what's coming out of your mouth.
Absolutely goes for piano students in particular, again, because they're often so isolated and not playing with other instruments. I do find that I have to teach my students to listen to themselves, and I can ask them to play something and then ask them at the end how that went, or give them a score, give yourself a score out of 10 for that. They just weren't listening. They were so focused on what they were playing, they weren't listening. So that's why I do like electronic keyboards and things like that, because you can just hit record and they can actually listen back and hear what they're really doing. And it is it sounds almost silly. Of course you're listening to what you're doing, but actually it takes practice.
You're just in this little tunnel of thinking about what the next note is and what's my fingering. And a teacher I had in college would say, put your ears across the room. Like, listen to yourself from way over there. And that's a weird thing to say, but it works. Because you all of a sudden start listening to how it's bouncing back to you from the walls and from across the room. And you start hearing it as a performance and not just the result of your practicing.
I just want to go back to your classical story again, because I keep thinking of more questions I want to ask. Was there a point at which you just said, okay, that's it, I'm just going to focus on the musical theatre stuff? Was there a catalyst for that, or did it just kind of fade out when you finished college?
No, I mean, I still play classically every now and then. I have a wonderful duo with cellist Jennifer Kletzel. She's a cellist in San Francisco. We actually grew up together, and now she's a fabulous concert cellist. We're putting together an album, some arrangements that I've done of Lieder, actually.
You're in New York, though, right?
Yes. So
recording things and sharing them. Oh, you get together when you can?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
And actually, up until about 10 or 12 years ago, my mother and I were a two-piano team. So that was, for 10 years or so out of college, we would perform together. And I do still learn new music. I still go back to my teacher from Peabody Prep. We have Zoom lessons, and I'm learning music. Yeah. I just learned some Albanese and having a lot of fun learning it with her.
Great. Okay, so it does form a part of your life still.
Absolutely. I love it too much. I can't give it up. That music is in me. And I still have most of my mother's library, so I can just walk across the room and pull out something and be like, hey, I've never heard that before. Let's see what that is.
And was there a particular peak of your own classical piano performance that you remember? A particular concerto or solo recital?
It was during college. I won the National Symphony competition, so I got to play with the National Symphony Orchestra. I won the Yale Concerto competition. I went to Aspen, studied with John Perry, played the Liszt Sonata on the Opera House at Aspen, which I still look back on that. Like, who was that
How
person?
Did you do that?
How did I do that? So it was in that area, yeah.
Yeah. What were the main concertos that you played?
I liked the offbeat ones, I have to say, which is not so great for a career, but I was like, I don't really want to learn Rock 2. I want to learn Rock 1. It's so great. Right? Or the Dochnani variations on the nursery rhyme. That's what I actually ended up playing with the National Symphony. I don't think they'd ever played it before.
Right. Okay.
Offbeat stuff like that. Yeah.
Again, that's another thing that audiences or examiners, let's say, or audition panels can listen to and go, I've heard this wizard song. Everyone auditions with this. Here's someone doing something a bit different. This is interesting. So that comes back to that. I mean, it's obviously been a part of your musical experience, just picking the slightly unusual ones.
So exactly. Like partly bodily was I didn't want to have to compete with all the amazing recordings.
Yeah. That's a good point.
But I wanted to put my own stamp on things, and I fell in love with these oddities and just went for it.
Now, you believe quite strongly in musical theory, I gather, too. And you do have a book. So I know you coach and you teach oral skills. You've got another book called Music Essentials for Singers and Actors.
Yes.
This is all about sight singing, music theory, I gather. So what are some of those musical theory elements that you believe are really important for any student of music?
A lot of it is really just the fundamentals. I mean, the reason that I wanted to write a book is that I was hearing so much from actors who went to great training programs, who still were terrified of theory, who felt like they were no good at it. They were too stupid to learn it. It was too hard for them. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not that hard. What are they trying to teach you? And they're like, oh, well, in my second semester, we were doing species counterpoint. I'm like, what? Why? Why are you doing that? Why are you ever learning that? It's awesome if you want to be a composer, if you want to be an academic, if you want to really get into stuff. You're a music theater actor. Why are you learning this stuff? I wanted to write a book that was slow, that was deliberate, that focused on really what actors need, which is rhythm, which is intervals, which is knowing how your part fits in with the other people who are singing and what the piano is doing, and being able to, like I said before, look at a score and find a little something about what the composer's intentions were. So I go very slowly, because I also find that a lot of programs, a lot of books, they go really quick. And I understand that. It's like if you're a theory doctoral student, right? You don't want to spend 4 months teaching ties, right? That's not fun for you. But that's what they need. That's what they need. People who come to college have never read music before and now are trying to make a career of it. They need that much time. When I took my book to my editor, he was like, I've never seen a book that spends this much real estate on just basics. And I really believe in that. So there's a lot of exercises. There's a lot of slow going, repeating things. And the other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to have all the examples be from Broadway shows. Just because it's relevant, it makes it fun. You can also learn a bit of the canon as you're going through it. And as I introduce a rhythmic topic, for example, I can say, and look, do you see how, Jerry Bach changes the rhythms for Tevye and Golda in this song? They have different kinds of rhythms. Do you see how that is telling story, how that affects the scene? How would you play that if you were an actor? How does that affect your acting?
Phenomenal. Sounds like a fantastic resource. Is it the kind of thing that you hope that universities will use, if they don't already, in courses?
Yeah, they are starting to. They are absolutely starting to. And I think it will be even more helpful now, because there's a lot of online, you get access to all these online audio examples, so exercises and answers and examples that you can just get online. So for courses for schools who are not going to be starting back up again in the fall in person, it's an even better resource now. So yes, I'm already hearing from teachers who are starting to use it, and it's doing well.
Working well, yeah, that's great. Now, we mentioned before, you're also a composer and songwriter and musical writer, and you've taught this at Yale, and you teach it even today. Can you tell us about your approach to songwriting? It's a big topic, and I know that I work with my students on improvising and making up compositions, often based around chords, and I love sharing that concept with teachers. The songwriting, though, I've spoken to other people on podcasts about it. It's a bit more challenging for me, because I don't feel I'm a natural librettist, if that's the right word, lyricist. So, what approaches do you use with students on this topic?
Well, I mean, not everyone has to write everything. That's the first thing. Like, most composers are not lyricists, and most lyricists are not composers. You don't have to do both. I do like to teach people to do both in my introductory classes, because some people, it turns out, think they're composers and they're actually better lyricists. They actually love it, and they love the crossword puzzle kind of aspect to it. And they just have a natural flair for colloquialisms and all that. So I do like to introduce everyone to both, but I don't hold everyone to the same standards. If you're not a lyricist, that's fine. Don't worry about it. But you should know what goes into it, right? It depends on where they are at, what kind of level they're at as musicians. If they have a lot of piano skills, that's great. If they have theory skills but not piano skills, that's another aspect. If they come at this from being a guitarist or being a violinist or something, you have to sort of go with where they are. The first thing I talk about, though, is really your job is to tell story with your music. It's not actually to write cool music. If that happens, that's great. If that's suitable for the story you're telling, for the character that you're writing for right now, at this moment in this character's life, that's great. But I find a lot of composers come at this from, oh, I want to write a pretty tune, or, you know what I mean? And I've worked quite a bit with David Shire, the wonderful composer. And he always says, when I start writing like a composer, it's never any good. I have to write like a storyteller. I have to write like a playwright. Then something interesting happens. Then something unique happens, right? Because I'm not just trying to write something that sounds sort of like another song or some version of a mood or something. No, what does this character sound like right now? Where they are. Where are they? Physically, where are they? What does it sound like around them? What does it sound like in their head? That kind of thing. And that frees people up to just write, really new stuff and not try to write something that sounds like Jonathan Larson or that sounds like Richard Rodgers or Sondheim or something. No, what does your character sound like?
So that means that you need a character.
Exactly. You have to, that's where you have to start from. Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Well, this is a good starting spot. So choosing a character, which means that our students need to get in the head of somebody, if it's not themselves. I mean, it could be themselves, I guess, and the things that they're going through, or it could be of a character. But you're saying, regardless of the song, think about the character and what's going on in their head, and then what story are they thinking about? What are you trying to tell?
Yeah.
What's the story? And
the flip side of that is what I tell my performers. I always say, whatever music is happening, your character is making that music happen. So whatever that piano introduction is, don't just wait. You're making that piano introduction happen. If the key changes, you're making that key change. So you better make it change. Don't just stand there while the key changes behind you. It's there for a reason. Music tells story. That is your job, both as an actor and as a composer. And so, yes, absolutely, you have to know what song you're writing. You have to know who this character is. What just happened to them? What do they want? Why is this an important moment? And if it's not an important moment, then there's no song there. We only write songs for characters in moments of importance, heightened moments.
This works for musical theatre. What about for songwriting? And I know this isn't your specialty, but songwriting in general, pop songs, those kinds of things. Do you have experience there? And does it take the same focus?
I don't have a lot of experience with pop writing, and I know that it's much less about story. It's especially if you want to be, sort of in the industrial pop songwriting world where you're cranking out hits. That's a totally different thing. That takes a lot of analysis, a lot of real savvy about what is popular now, sort of psychological tricks, the way beats are manufactured and put together. That's not something that I really know anything about. That's a whole other world. So I would defer to someone else on that.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
And what about notation? I do, as I said, love exploring composition with students and just being creative, but I don't force them necessarily to notate things. Do you think that's an important thing to do?
I mean, again, it depends on where they're coming from. If they're really facile with notation, they read really well, yes, you should write it down. You should be aware of what your music looks like because music theater is collaborative and you want your songs to be performed when you're not around. So you need to be able to put it down on paper exactly how you want it. And you need to think about, what do you really, really need a performer to do? And what are you like, well, okay, if they do it a different way, that's cool.
Yeah, as to how much detail you put in.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Am I just going to leave it blank, or I'm going to read Samuel Barber and write an articulation above every single note?
Right. And do you have a favorite notation software that you use? Because you must do a lot of that.
I have a notation software that I use. I'll say that. I mean, I have wanted to learn Sibelius for a while. I just have been on Finale since it came out, basically. And so I feel like I'm sort of stuck on it, even though I end up yelling at it a lot. There are things that should have been fixed 2 decades ago, literally, and are still a problem.
It's being bought out by other companies and stuff, doesn't it? I think it's moved around a bit.
I don't know. And this interview may spur me to get Sibelius because I'm so
Right.
tired of feeling it finale.
Okay.
It does let you do basically anything, which is very strange. If you're doing really avant-garde types of, aleatoric scores and craziness, then yes, you can do pretty much anything with it. But if you're just doing basic stuff, there are some choices that they have made that I question.
For sure. So I want to wrap things up by just going back to the topic we were talking about right at the beginning with regard to the pandemic and how this has changed everyone and some of those challenges, particularly with remote learning. And you've been a teacher, so you know that side of things. What are your thoughts on how people have adjusted and some of those challenges, and perhaps even what it might look like in your view in the coming 6 months to 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, what's been surprising is the kinds of things that have worked. And have worked really well, actually. And we have faculty meetings where like, this is better. This is a little better in some ways. For example, for in a Zoom class, I can do little breakout rooms and I can put two people together and they can do rhythms together. And then I can peek in and see them, and see what's going on. Can't do that in a class. Can't do it at the same time. That's annoying. If I'm having one person read a rhythm, everyone else can be muted and can be doing it themselves. They can't do that in a live class. Usually I'm telling people to shut up, stop humming. I hear you. I hear humming. Let the person do it. No, they can just mute themselves. They can hum all they want. So things like that work really well. I find also, and a lot of my colleagues have found, that students are concentrating really well. It's very focused. I mean, it's exhausting, we find. Teaching a Zoom class is more tiring. But people focus really, really well. And that's really exciting. What is challenging is a very specific problem for me and for anyone who's doing ensemble type stuff is the lag, the sound lag, and not being able to have a student sing while I'm playing the piano. And especially with my class, which is all about sight singing, what are you going to do? They don't know the song. They're trying to learn how to sing a song that they don't know, and I can't really help them. So what I learned to do is just make an MP3 of the accompaniment, and then I email it to them, and then they press play, and then they sing along with it, which is tough, but it's actually really useful because, especially nowadays, but even before all of this happened, actors need to learn to sing to tape. They need to be able to learn to put something on like a reel or something if they're making an audition for, exactly. So learning to sing to a recording, again, it's about listening, about teaching them how to listen, stay with the recording. So it's challenging, but it's a good challenge, I find. That said, I can't wait to be in the same room with them again.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting seeing what happens and how the online aspect may form a part of ongoing education in a bigger sense than it had been before. Yeah.
I hope it will. I hope it will, because like I said, we're finding stuff that works really, really well. And then it's a great supplement to the in-person stuff.
Well, Andrew, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you, chatting with you today. And I think we could have spoken for much longer and gone into a lot more depth on things that a lot of people would find quite boring. But our musical theatre
we have fun. That's what
we have fun. That's right. I do enjoy reminiscing on my musical theatre times and all those frustrations I had at doing those dance scenes and bopping along on the piano in 3/4. All that stuff. Yeah. So I don't miss that, but I do love musical theatre and I still love attending. So it's been great to meet you, someone behind all this music that's going on, and I really wish you all the best for hopefully the reopening of Broadway and surrounds and getting back to some more normality. Where can people find we've mentioned a few books and things that you've got out there. Where can people find out more about you and those books?
Sure, absolutely. Well, the books are on Amazon or at my publisher, which is Hal Leonard. And again, they are The Enraged Accompanist Guide to the Perfect Audition and Music Essentials for Singers and Actors. You can find a lot of my music and other projects just on my website, which is just www.andrewgerle.com.
Gerle.
Gerle, yes, Gerle.
Fantastic. And great for any teachers listening who have students. And we do have a lot of singing teachers who listen. So any of your students who are interested in musical theatre or piano students interested in that kind of accompanying role, these books may well be very useful to you. So go and check them out. Thank you so much, Andrew. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you. Bye.
So, have you been struggling to get good quality sound out of your online lessons if you're using Zoom or Skype or just about any other platform? Well, if you are, then next week you need to meet Mike Grande, the creator of Rock Out Loud, and you'll find out why music teachers are choosing it over Zoom for online music lessons. In fact, it just might help you retain students better. Now, if you've heard about any event, product, or service in today's episode and didn't have a chance to write it down, don't worry. We list everything that you've heard about in this episode in our show notes. You can head to topmusic.co/episode 198. I'm Tim Topham, and you've been listening to the Topcast from topmusic.co. I'll see you next time. For more information about this episode and to find out how to enhance your own teaching, visit topmusic.co. You'll find everything you need for your studio, from lesson plans to cheat sheets, quick win teaching ideas, and guides on how to build your teaching business. Plus, you'll be connected to a global community of the world's top music teachers. And when you're ready, join hundreds of other teachers around the world by becoming a Top Music Pro member and get access to all our bonus content and flagship courses. And don't forget to follow topmusic.co on social media and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to it. That's all for today. We'll see you in the studio.